Greetings, plofessors! Today, I'm back with part 2 of my video about the insane history of one of K-pop's worst companies, TS Entertainment. So, where did we leave off last time again? Secret were actually living in a cramped and rundown basement TS Entertainment for unfair working conditions and profit distribution. The Korean commercial arbitration also found a lot of the company with numerous staff complaining about unpaid wages. No contributor would ever assume that they're only contributing to one-third and completely abandon the Becs campaign altogether. As you can see, a lot of stuff went down in part 1, so if you haven't seen it yet, then be sure to check it out before coming back here. I'm gonna have that video linked in the description. But okay, you would think that since we covered so much stuff in part 1, surely that would be a good chunk of TS's history, right? Well, it turns out that was only 23 out of the 50 pages of research that I did. That's right, guys, we didn't even cover half the stuff that went down with this company. So buckle up, because this video is going to be even more chaotic than the last. But before we dive into that mess, I wanted to start off on a happy note with today's sponsor, Kloot Box. Kloot Box is a K-pop subscription box packed to the brim with yummy snacks and merchandise from your favorite K-pop groups. As you may know, Kloot Box recently expanded their collection, and they now stock boxes for 13 different artists. So I obviously had to try out one of their new Kloot Boxes, which is why this time I decided to go for the aespa Kloot Box. So let's take a look at what's inside. Every Kloot Box is different, and you never really know what you're gonna get, so opening up your box is always an awesome surprise. Is this a mouse pad? Oh my gosh, I've always needed a mouse pad, so this is perfect. Oh, a shirt! I can't wait to wear this. So I'm currently wearing my Ning Ning shirt, which I obviously received in my Kloot Box, and what can I say? I absolutely love it, and I think it fits me perfectly. And you know, that's actually one of the things that I love about Kloot Box. Not only do you get to pick your favorite group, you also get to pick your bias, your food preferences, and your clothing size. So that ensures that all the merchandise you receive fits you perfectly and suits your preferences and needs. So be sure to check out Kloot Box, and don't forget to use code PLOOPY678 for 5% off. Okay, so where we last left off, TS had essentially been in decline since late 2014, with the company experiencing dwindling sales, financial troubles, and numerous legal disputes with their artists and staff. All of these problems allegedly took a toll on the founder of the company, Kim Tae-sung, and in April of 2018, he sadly passed away from what is widely believed to have been a suicide due to TS's dire state. Now, as you guys already know, Kim Tae-sung was actually not just the founder, but also the CEO, producer, and chairman of the board of directors for TS Entertainment. Essentially, he was the company's most important leader in almost every aspect. So you would think that now that he was gone, surely TS would scramble to find a replacement, right? Well, apparently not, because according to news articles online, no new CEO was ever appointed. NANI? And with no proper leader to oversee the operations of the company, TS essentially fell into a state of anarchy. The company allegedly stopped paying their taxes, owing, quote, hundreds of millions of won to the Korean government, and they also began taking out huge loans from other corporations that they would then default on, resulting in numerous lawsuits from angry creditors. With the company in a complete state of disarray, a couple of, quote, directors finally stepped up and took control. And one of these directors, who also happened to be the company's longtime choreographer, Park Sung-hoon, was named as TS's new representative. Now, because TS is a privately owned company, it was impossible for me to find the details of the company's corporate structure, and it remains unclear whether these, quote, directors were in fact already shareholders of the company even while CEO Kim was alive, or whether they only took ownership of the company after the CEO's death. I've seen some netizens speculate that these directors might have manipulated the CEO to hand over ownership of the company, but really there's no evidence of that. And personally, I'm more inclined to believe that these directors were likely already shareholders, because I really doubt anyone would be lining up to take ownership of a failing company like TS, which by this point would have definitely been more of a liability than an asset. And these liabilities would only continue to multiply as their disputes with Secret, which, if you recall, had dragged on for well over a year now, finally came to an unfavorable end for TS. Now, if you remember from the last video, Jiyeon's contract had officially been terminated by an arbitration board in February of 2018, while Hyosung, who had sued TS for unpaid wages in 2017, was actually granted a suspension of her contract in September of 2018. With their contracts either terminated or suspended, Jiyeon and Hyosung were technically free, at least for the time being. So both members took this opportunity to escape the hellhole that was TS and signed with other agencies. Jiyeon signed with Haewada, while Hyosung signed with Tommy and Partners Entertainment. Again, they had been granted freedom by the arbitration board and the courts, so they were totally in their rights to do this. Yet, TS completely ignored all the rulings and instead retaliated by taking unfounded legal action against the two women. They attempted to file a countersuit against Hyosung in October of 2018 for breach of contract, but obviously her lawyer was just like, what contract? It had been suspended. And so this case was a no-brainer for the courts, and TS ended up losing. Hyosung's contract was finally terminated once and for all, and TS were ordered to pay her 130 million won in overdue wages, as well as 95% of the legal fees. In an attempt to recuperate this cost, TS then tried to countersue Hyosung again in early 2019. However, this too didn't go according to plan, and the court decided on an undisclosed settlement for both parties. After this ruling, TS originally claimed that they were going to continue filing more lawsuits against Hyosung. However, I guess they realized at some point that Hyosung had a rock-solid case, and they were just losing even more money by dragging out this legal battle with her. So they instead attempted to get their coin from Jiyeon. On April Fools of 2019, TS played the fool by accusing Jiyeon of also breaking her contract by signing with a new agency. In response, Jiyeon's lawyer stated the obvious, which was that Jiyeon's contract had been terminated by the Korean Commercial Arbitration Board back in 2018. However, TS claimed that this decision was not valid as, quote, it was not the final ruling given by the courts. I actually double-checked this, and it turns out that the board's rulings are supposed to be legally binding, just like the courts. But let's give TS the benefit of the doubt, since they apparently believed that the courts were so much more important than the boards, since they believed that only the court's decisions mattered. You would think that surely TS would go to the courts to get a final ruling on Jiyeon's contract, right? Nope. TS instead went to the Korean Entertainment Management Association, another board, to get a new ruling instead. NANI? Why did they do this, you might ask? Well, I actually did a bit of digging into the Korean Entertainment Management Association, or KEMA for short, and it turns out that the association's board of directors consists of CEOs and high-level executives from entertainment companies across Korea. Additionally, the association had 250 entertainment companies who were paying members in 2018. Could TS be one of them? Could the fact that they were paying members result in an unfair mediation? I'll leave that up to you to decide. Anyways, in mid-2019, a decision was finally made, and Jiyeon was thankfully released from her contract, though the exact settlement terms were never publicly revealed. With both secret members successfully escaping the clutches of TS Entertainment, that left poor Hana as the only member in the company, further confirming the fact that Secret's days as a group were well and truly over. What wasn't over though was TS's legal troubles, because just 2 months after the conclusion of Jian's legal battle, TS faced yet another lawsuit, this time from 2 members of Sonamoo, Na-hyun and Soo-min. As soon as news of the lawsuit was revealed, TS released a statement using their age-old excuse that, you guessed it, Na-hyun and Soo-min had allegedly ghosted the company and their fellow members. They had been practicing without issue until the day before the documents arrived, but afterwards, they suddenly cut contact, even with their fellow members, their statement read. In response, Soo-min gave her version of events in a lengthy Instagram post, explaining why she had decided to file this lawsuit against TS. She claimed that even though the members had requested for individual payments from TS, the company instead gave Sonamoo one collective paycheck for the entire group, with no explanation as to how the payment amount was determined or how the money should be distributed between the members. When Soo-min and Na-hyun requested for a more detailed breakdown of the payment, TS instead gave an incomplete document. Soo-min claimed that she and Na-hyun had continued to request for the full document up until the day that they filed the lawsuit, so it wasn't like there were just no issues before the documents arrived. Additionally, she claimed that she and Na-hyun had stayed in contact with the company the entire time, and even agreed to participate in the failed Makestar project, but it was the company that cut them off, ignoring their messages, kicking them out of their dorm, and even attempting to drive a wedge between them and the other members by speaking badly of them and asking the other members not to contact them. The case eventually went to court, and on the 10th of September 2020, the court ruled in favor of Na-hyun and Soo-min, allowing them to nullify their contracts with TS. TS reportedly filed an appeal 4 days later, but after this, no more information surfaced and the dispute seemingly came to an abrupt end, leading to speculations that TS had retracted their appeal, possibly because they had to reserve their limited funds for the legal battle that they were having with yet another one of their artists, Untouchable Sleepy. Sleepy had allegedly submitted a request to terminate his contract in April of 2019, followed by another request to suspend his contract in May. His reasons for wanting to end his contract? Well, I feel like a broken record at this point, but essentially, like B.A.P, Secret, Sonamoo, and the TS staff, he felt like the company hadn't been transparent about his payments and had allegedly, quote, never shown him a physical copy of his contract. The case went to court in June of 2019, and the courts allegedly ruled in TS's favor. However, TS and Sleepy ended up parting ways in August regardless, and Sleepy then went on to become an independent artist. But his dispute with TS wasn't over yet, because TS then accused him of embezzling money by doing advertising campaigns without their permission, and even announced that they would be filing a damage claim suit against him in the coming months. In response, Sleepy exposed the company through a series of interviews and social media posts, where he detailed his terrible living conditions during his time under TS. He accused the company of not paying him on time, withholding his account details, and being late on rent and bill payments, to the point where his water and electricity had been cut off and he eventually got evicted. There were also issues regarding his contract. Sleepy had actually resigned with the company in February of 2016 after his original contract ended, a decision I'm sure he came to regret later. But as is customary, he was promised a down payment of 115 million won upon signing his new contract, and this amount was supposed to be paid in full as soon as the contract began. However, the company asked if they could pay the amount in installments instead. Precisely, they said that they would pay 1.9 million won each month for the next 60 months. Sleepy initially agreed to this, but as the months went on, the company was continuously late on their payments, and at the time of the interview with SBS in September of 2019, 42 months had already passed, yet TS had only paid him 30 months worth of his installments.
일시불로 받았어야 할 계약금의 절반가량은 아직도 받지 못했다고 했습니다.
And those were just the issues with the down payment. The company allegedly also owed him parts of his actual monthly pay, which according to Dispatch were calculated incorrectly, such that his costs were increased and his profits were reduced in order to allow the company to underpay him for his work. All this caused Sleepy to be so broke that he allegedly didn't even have 100 won, or about 8 US cents, in his bank account. 8 cents! And so this poor guy was allegedly surviving off just one roll of kimbap a day.
김밥도 제일 싼 거 있잖아요. 그거를 거의 하루에 한 끼만 먹었어요. 한 줄만.
He admitted that he did in fact advertise products on his social media without his company's approval, but claimed that he had to do it in order to survive. He also said that most of these sponsors were actually fashion brands who just gave him free clothes, which he needed because TS never provided him with a stylist. The TS versus Sleepy case finally went to court in December, with TS requesting 280 million won in damages for defamation of character and breach of contract, which, can I just say, seems absolutely pointless to me. I mean, if it was true that Sleepy really only had 100 won in his account, did TS ever really expect to get paid even if they won the lawsuit? Thankfully, this was a question that TS never had to contend with, because the courts ended up ruling in favor of Sleepy, and rather than getting paid, TS were instead ordered to pay Sleepy 280 million won, marking yet another one of the many legal battles that TS had lost. It really seemed as if TS thought that they could recoup their losses by extracting money from their artists through these unfounded lawsuits. But clearly, the strategy had backfired, and the company was now even more in the red thanks to all the damages they owed their artists, on top of the legal fees they had just wasted. But money wasn't the only thing that TS was hemorrhaging, because within just the span of 2 years, they had also lost a majority of artists under their label. All the members of B.A.P, for instance, had left. Eujin, Newsun, Minjae, and Diana from Sonamoo had left. Untouchable's other member, D-Action, had left. This apparently occurred after he had been threatened by a TS director, Director Kim, during an argument about Untouchable's car. And this wasn't even to mention all the artists that we had covered earlier who had left after getting into lawsuits with TS, such as Jian and Hyosung from Secret, Nahyun and Sumin from Sonamoo, Sleepy from Untouchable, as well as more than half the staff members at TS who had fled the company after their already low wages allegedly decreased by a further 8%.
Tragic.
Clearly, TS was a sinking ship, and by mid-2020, pretty much everyone had jumped off. The only people left in the company at this point were a grand total of 8 staff members, 1 member of Secret, 1 member of Sonamoo, and their only complete group, TRCNG. Another lawsuit? So because of all the shit that had been going down with TS and the other artists, I haven't even had the chance to talk about TRCNG. But they too hadn't gone unscathed from being under the godforsaken TS Entertainment. Ever since the release of Wolf Baby in January of 2018, the group hadn't been able to make a comeback thanks to TS's deteriorating financial situation. The next fans would hear from TRCNG would be in September of 2018, when it was announced that the group would be launching TRCNG Mobile, a paid mobile app to allow the members to communicate with their fans. How exciting! Except the app didn't work. Most fans couldn't even get past the sign-up page, while others never received their verification codes. Some also complained that they couldn't post content without the entire app crashing. In response, the app development team revealed that the app hadn't even been tested on certain phones before its launch. That wasn't the only time that TRCNG fans were left feeling disappointed and duped, though, because in May of 2019, 16 months after their last comeback, Tracing finally released a new song, Paradise. Paradise was actually supposed to be a pre-release single, and TS originally promised that the group would be following this up with a full comeback album the next month in June. However, when June arrived, there was no sign of said comeback. It wasn't until late July that TS finally gave fans a long overdue update, confirming that the comeback song along with the album will instead be released on the 5th of August. As soon as the comeback date was confirmed, pre-orders for the album commenced, and hundreds of fans who were honestly just relieved to know that the comeback would be happening immediately placed their orders on various K-pop retail sites as they excitedly awaited the day of their release. Finally, on August the 5th, TRCNG's comeback song Missing was released, where they sang about feelings of disappointment and despair. They might as well have been describing the feelings of their fans, because what was in fact missing were the albums that these fans had pre-ordered back in July. Turns out, even though the comeback song had been released on time, TS had reportedly run out of funds to produce physical copies of the album, resulting in multiple delays. Just a glance at some of these K-pop retail sites truly shows how bad the situation was. Almost every week, a new release date would be promised, only to then be pushed back once again, leaving fans feeling frustrated and confused. And since it wasn't TS who was directly selling the albums, it was these K-pop retailers who had to deal with the brunt of customer complaints. In the end, it wasn't until mid-October, after more than 2 months of delays, that TRCNG's disgruntled fans finally received their long-awaited album.
Wow, like they came back in August and the album finally releases in October. I just can't believe how big of a clown TS is, but we'll talk about that later. Let's just get into the album. So here is the cover.
As if things couldn't get any worse, just 1 month after the release of the album, more bad news befell TRCNG and their fans when it was announced that 2 of the members, Woo-yup and Taeson, had come forward with allegations of child abuse against TS's representative director Park Sung-hoon. They claimed that Director Park had made the group practice for up to 19 hours a day, leaving no time for the members, who were all minors at the time, to get enough sleep or go to school. In fact, since all their time was spent practicing, Woo-yup and Taeson allegedly had to switch to closer schools in order to reduce their travel time, and were now 2 years behind other students of the same age. They also accused Director Park of cursing and physically assaulting the members. Photos emerged allegedly showing the members being assaulted with toothbrushes, and Woo-yup claimed that he once had to be hospitalized after Director Park threw a chair at him, and he was then threatened to remain silent. Shortly after the initial allegations, Dispatch released an article showing communications between TS's director and the TRCNG members, where the directors cursed and swore at the members for seemingly no reason. Photos of TRCNG's dorm were also revealed, exposing the inhumane living conditions that the members were kept in. 8 of the members allegedly slept in 2 rooms on the first floor, while the remaining 2 members lived in a warehouse-type room on the second floor. It was said that the ceiling on the second floor was so low that the members couldn't even stand up straight, and the entire dorm was cluttered full of clothes, props, and equipment. Like with Sleepy, Jiyeon, Hyosung, and countless other artists under TS, TRCNG's bills were allegedly also left unpaid, causing the light and electricity to stop working. The boiler apparently also shut off in the middle of winter, which resulted in half the members catching a cold. And many of the appliances in the dorm, including their aircon, toilet, and water filters, were also broken and left unfixed, even after the members had contacted the company multiple times. In the end, the members' parents ended up having to replace the appliances themselves, as they could no longer wait for the company. On top of all of this, the boys were reportedly also not provided with any food unless they were practicing late into the night, so they often had to ask their parents for money to pay for their meals. Now, you would think that since TS provided the boys with, well, nothing, surely they wouldn't have much debt, right? Well, that's where you'd be wrong, because despite having to pay for pretty much everything themselves, the company still claimed that the group somehow owed them a whopping 1.3 billion won. I could honestly go on and on about all the allegations that were made, but perhaps the most shocking ones revolved around how individual staff members at TS intimidated and financially exploited the boys. There was also an incident where Woo-yup and Taeson were allegedly scolded by company staff because they bought coffee for themselves but did not get any for the staff. The boys were then forced to buy all the staff members coffee the next day. It was also reported that one of the TS executives would often force the members and their dance team to do hours of unpaid labor, making them label, take photos, and assist in the selling of his massive shoe collection. Additionally, Woo-yup accused an unnamed TS employee of extorting close to 1.2 million won from him. He said that because he was the only member who lived outside of Seoul, where the company was located, it was therefore assumed that he would receive more pocket money from his parents than the other members, which made him the target of this employee. He claimed that the TS employee would continuously ask to borrow money from him whenever he came back from seeing his parents, and would single him out for more intense training or order the other employees to harass him if he refused. Now, of course, these allegations are absolutely horrendous, and if true, what the staff was doing was completely unacceptable. But let's not forget that the staff themselves hadn't been paid either, and many of them were so broke that they had been taking out loans to support their family. It was likely that they were desperately in need of money themselves and simply saw the TRCNG members as easy targets. Even the executive who was selling his shoes was likely doing it because TS was in such serious financial debt that he just needed some spare cash to keep the company afloat, if just for another day. Obviously, I'm by no means justifying their behavior, and I actually think it was pretty low of them to stoop to the level of bullying kids and stealing their pocket money. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I think it's important to acknowledge that there was clearly a cycle of exploitation and abuse going on here, and everyone involved, from the artists to the staff to even the executives, were all desperate and broke. From the bottom to the top, the entire organization was rotten from the core, and by this point, TS was clearly beyond the point of saving. Anyways, all of these allegations were compiled, and on the 12th of November 2019, the two TRCNG members, Woo-yup and Taeson, filed a criminal complaint against Director Park at the Seoul Metropolitan Police Station. They also announced that they would be filing a lawsuit against TS to get their contracts terminated. In response, TS came forward with their version of events, where they accused Woo-yup of dating a staff member, skipping practice, and of course, ghosting his group. Following this, there were several back and forths between TS and Woo-yup's parents and legal team, which frankly, I'm too tired to cover at the moment, but essentially the main revelation was that Woo-yup's side claimed that all of the TRCNG members' parents had initially planned to sue TS together, and they had even signed a group petition, but the remaining 8 members ended up backing out last minute. TS disputed this claim and even escalated the situation by announcing that the remaining 8 members' parents would be filing a lawsuit against Woo-yup and Taeson's parents.
I'm so damn confused.
Thankfully, this lawsuit never went ahead in the end. And as for the child abuse allegations, well, those actually got forwarded to the prosecution in April of 2020, though what happened afterwards remains unclear. In fact, the trail pretty much runs cold after this point. With mounting debts, pending criminal investigations, and a completely trashed reputation, I guess even TS's directors had to finally come to terms with the fact that the company simply could not be saved. So they released the few artists left under their label, abandoned their social media, and quietly took down their website before finally liquidating the company in January of 2021. And so, just like that, at long last, one of the most disastrous K-pop companies had finally come to its well-deserved end. Since then, most of TS's former artists have thankfully gone on to live brighter, happier days. Both members of Untouchable set up companies of their own and continued their career as K-hip hop rappers, frequently featuring each other on their latest tracks. Secret members Sunhwa, Jian, and Hyosung have all gone on to have successful acting careers, while Hana was recently appointed a music professor at Cheongam Art School. All the members of B.A.P have also gone on to have successful solo music careers, except for Himchan, but that's a story for another video. Meanwhile, all the Sonamoo members have managed to re-debut as solo music artists or actresses, and as for the TRCNG members, several of them actually re-debuted recently as a new group, APR Project. It's relieving to see that the artists were able to move on from such a terrible experience, but at the same time, it definitely also brings to light just how much talent and potential was wasted at TS. From such a good roster of artists to a passionate and talented CEO, TS seemingly had all the makings of a successful company, yet they squandered it all away thanks to corruption and greed. Up until today, nobody really knows where all the money from the fans' donations and the artists and the staff's paychecks went. We also do not know if any of the directors faced any repercussions for their actions, and it's likely that these questions will remain unanswered. But what we do know for sure is that TS Entertainment truly exemplifies the worst K-pop has to offer, and we can only hope that others in the industry look to TS as a case study on what not to do when running a company, so that hopefully nothing like this ever happens again. So that concludes the story of TS Entertainment. This honestly has to be one of the most overwhelming videos I've ever done, and honestly, my brain is fried. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye! Thank you for watching, and special thanks to my Patreon members for supporting my channel. If you'd like to watch reaction videos and other bonus content, then be sure to check that out on my Patreon.